So before I give you guys my rankings, I like to give you guys some tips and pointers for things I like to look for out of my wide receiver when I'm constructing my team. One of the main things I look for out of the wide receiver position are targets. Targets equal opportunities, and opportunities could equal points. Now, just because you're being targeted does not necessarily mean you're going to be a good wide receiver in fantasy football. So that leads to my next point, is catch percentage. I'm looking for a receiver that's going to receive the ball when they are targeted. So I'm looking at receivers that have a pretty good catch percentage rating. Anything really over 60% to me is good. 50, you're kind of pushing it. It just really depends on the receiver and their talent. The last thing I look for out of my wide receiver are receivers that are going to find the end zone. Touchdowns equal points. And again, those points will win you some of those close games that you're going to find yourself coming into week in and week out in your fantasy football leagues. Now, as an actual receiver, I like the slot receiver. Those guys get you a lot of receptions and they're really easy catches. But that may only come into play in PPR leagues, may not be necessarily one of the main things you should look out for if you're in a non-PPR league. But on that note, let's jump into my rankings, and hopefully I can help you guys get to the promised land this year. Yo, fantasy football. At number 1, I think we all know who I'm going with, and that is can't guard Mike Thomas with the New Orleans Saints. Michael Thomas is going to give you high production at the wide receiver position. Last year, he led the league in targets, giving you over 180, 185 to be exact. He also caught 149 of those, which is over 80% catch percentage rating. Michael Thomas found the end zone 9 times, averaging 11.6 yards per catch, totaling the year at 1,725. That also led the league in reception yards. Michael Thomas is going to be a highly productive player in a highly explosive offense. You're out there with Sean Payton, Drew Brees. You have Taysom Hill to go along with Alvin Kamara, Jerry Cook at tight end. I mean, do I need to name any more weapons? Michael Thomas will have another great year, and in my opinion, he should be the number 1 receiver off the board. At number 2, I'm going to go with my personal favorite wide receiver, and that's Julio Jones. This guy seems to get the job done year in and year out for almost a decade now. Julio Jones is another guy that gave you over 150 targets last year, catching 99 of those, finishing the year at a catch percentage of 63.1%. Julio Jones found the end zone 6 times, but you can't really blame him for that because he's seeing a lot of double teams opening up in the red zone for other players such as Russell Gage, who actually led the wide receivers last year on the Atlanta Falcons in the red zone. But also with the emergence of Calvin Ridley, hopefully Julio will see less double teams this year, putting Todd Gurley back there. That'll also put more pressure on a lot of these defenses. So Julio may be seeing a lot more one-on-ones this year, and barring injury and old age, Julio should see another productive year. At number 3, I'm going with Davante Adams from the Green Bay Packers. This guy is elite and one of the best route runners in the NFL. And speaking of number 1 receivers, in the whole league, he's probably one of the most alpha receivers leading their wide receiver rooms in the league. Last year, Davante Adams only played 12 games, but he still gave you over 120 targets, 127 to be specific. He caught about 83 of those, finishing the year at 65.4 catch percentage rating, scoring 5 touchdowns, but again, he only played 12 games. This is going to be Aaron Rodgers' favorite target, so I think you guys need to snag him coming off my board at number 3 at the wide receiver position. At number 4, I'm going with Nook Hopkins, DeAndre if we're giving out governments. DeAndre Hopkins is a pure beast talent-wise. Now, I know you guys are a little alarmed going to a new system, but I think the system he goes to bodes well with his skill set. Kingsbury and Kyler Murray are definitely trying to air things out down there. You still have Fitzgerald there, Christian Kirk, the emergence of Kenyon Drake. This should be a very, very, very fun offense to watch. I'm very excited to see what Nook does. But getting into some of the numbers, last year Nook gave you 150 targets and caught 104 of those, finishing the year at almost a 70% catch percentage rating. Nook also found the end zone 7 times, totaling the year at 1,165 receiving yards. He is a beast, and you want to snag him after you get one of those other three guys. But I get if you have him a little bit lower, just because there was no real preseason. Who knows how much work he got to get with the Cardinals. But going off of what these guys are trying to do and the talent of Nick Hopkins, I don't really care who he plays with. As you've seen in his whole career in Houston, didn't matter who the quarterback was, he got the job done. At number 5, I'm going with Tyreek Hill with the Kansas City Chiefs. Tyreek Hill is a very explosive player, and we all seen what he can do when healthy, which is one of my concerns this year, is his health. He's a small guy, but has the heart of a lion, and Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid will always find a way to scheme him open. I mean, with that speed, it really isn't that hard. You just tell him to run a fly route and throw it as far as you can, and I'm sure he'll catch it and get to the end zone. Now, Tyreek Hill only played 12 games last year, so his targets were a little low. He only gave you 89 targets last year, but he caught 58 of those at 65.2% catch percentage rating, and he found the end zone 7 times. Tyreek Hill is one of those guys that he may not get the ball often or he may not get targeted often, but every time he does catch it, it could go to the crib. So he's going to be coming off my list at the number 5 position. At my number 6 position, I'm going with the Goldilocks Super Saiyan Assassin, Odell Beckham Jr. Now, talent-wise, I think this guy could be a top 3 receiver in the league. But as we've seen over the last couple of years, that hasn't necessarily replicated on the stat sheet. But I do think this is a bounce back year for Odell Beckham Jr. for one main reason, and that's Kevin Stefanski. Now, I get it. I know you guys seen Stefanski last year in Minnesota and saw the production of Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen go down. But I do think that if this team can establish some type of identity through the run, which that will most likely be through Chubb and Kareem Hunt, the play action will be there for Baker. It'll slow Baker down to make more accurate throws. And honestly, they're going to have to put more people in the box, which for a guy like Odell Beckham Jr., with his skill set, he's going to be getting more one-on-ones, and I think his stats will see an uptick this year. And not to mention, he has a pretty good receiver on the other side with Jarvis Landry. So I do think this will be a good year for Odell Beckham Jr., and honestly, I'm hoping for the best. Number 7 on my list, I'm going with Chris Godwin with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chris Godwin had a great year last year, and I think it will only get better with Tom Brady this year. As we all know, Tom loves his slot receivers. Now, there may be some concern there with the tight end at Gronk being added this year, and we all know OJ. Well, let's not mention OJ. But I do think Chris Godwin will have a great year with Tom Brady, not to mention other options as Michael Evans is on the other side, and then in that backfield, they just picked up Leonard Fournette. This should be very fun to watch. Just to give you some of the stats, our guy Chris Godwin gave you 121 targets last year, catching 86 of those, finishing the year at 71.1% catch rating. He also gave you 9 touchdowns, giving you 15.5 yards per catch. Chris Godwin is a very good player, and I'm expecting very good things out of him this year. Moving into number 8, I'm going with the Cal Golden Bear, Keenan Allen, with the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I know a lot of you guys are down on him because Phillip Rivers is gone, but this guy, just like Devontae Adams, is probably one of the best route runners in the league. If Tyrod Taylor can just get the ball near him, it will be caught because he'll be wide open after he routes somebody up. Keenan Allen will see great numbers this year because Mike Williams has been injured throughout the preseason, and honestly, who else do they really have if Hunter Henry can't stay on the field? Keenan Allen last year gave you a total of 149 targets, which may take a tick down with Tyrod there, but who knows? Keenan Allen also caught 104 of those, giving you 69.8 catch percentage rating. Touchdowns, he finished the year with 6, and I do expect some pretty good things out of Keenan Allen again this year. A lot of people are low on him, but again, I'm going off of talent, and this guy is one of the best in the league. So he caps off my list at number 8. Number 9, let's get to the other Tampa Bay Buccaneer that I mentioned briefly earlier, which is Mike Evans. Mike Evans is another receiver who is very talented, seeing over 110 targets last year, giving you 118 to be exact, finishing the year with 67 catches. Now, he's one of those guys who was at 56%, which is lower than my 60 that I gave you earlier in my strategy, but Michael Evans is a pretty good receiver. He's one of those outliers. Found the end zone 8 times, and he's due for a big game almost every game. As we seen last year, he started off the season slow and then just boomed week after week after week, finishing the year with 1,157 reception yards, which is pretty solid. He only played 13 games, by the way. Now, I know Tom Brady's no gunslinger like Jameis Winston, but Tom Brady can still get it out there, and he'll be a little more accurate, and hopefully they'll find some other ways to get Mike Evans involved in his offense. So he caps out my number 9 on my list. Number 10, I'm going with Amari Cooper with the Dallas Cowboys. Coop. Pretty good receiver in my opinion. I know some people had concerns there with the drop catches a few years ago, but I think last year he did a really good job, and Amari Cooper definitely has great chemistry with Dak Prescott. Amari Cooper gave you 119 targets last year, catching 79 of those, finishing with a 66.4 catch percentage rating. He also found the end zone 8 times, totaling 1,189 yards on the year last year, which is, again, pretty good. Anything over 1,000 yards is good in my book out of the receiver position. Last year, Coop finished the year within his fantasy position at number 7 in PPR leagues. So solid performance last year. I'm expecting great things again this year. And again, with other weapons that they just added, CeeDee Lamb, and then you also have the emergence of Michael Gallup. Dak's going to have a lot on his plate. He has a chip on his shoulder that he's going to be trying to prove because they're not trying to give that guy a contract. So I'm only expecting high things out of Amari Cooper once again in the 2020 season. At my number 11, I am going to go with Kenny Golladay with the Detroit Lions. Kenny Golladay is one of those unusual players because for my personal preference, he doesn't really give you a great catch percentage, doesn't really catch the ball when he's targeted, but he produces. He hits definitely in the touchdown category, giving you 11 last year, and he also finished the year with over 1,000 yards, 1,190 to be exact. Now, his targets were at 116, and he only caught 65 of those at a 56% catch percentage rating. But again, he's one of those outliers, even though he's not catching often, and even though he's not being targeted as much as you like to see out of your number 1 receiver. But again, Kenny Golladay is a really good receiver. He's big, he's strong, and Matt Stafford definitely has a chemistry with him. We even seen when David Blau got in there last year, and Kenny Golladay was still blowing it up. So I really like Kenny Golladay, and I'm expecting big things out of him, and hopefully his career can continue on the right trajectory going into the 2020 season. And at number 12 on my list is Stefon Diggs with the Buffalo Bills. I really like Stefon Diggs a lot. I think he's a very talented player, and a lot of people aren't really as high on Stefon Diggs as I think they should be. I think with the 3rd season of Josh Allen, this is the year that he should put everything together. And if John Brown got over 1,000 yards last year, why can't Stefon Diggs? Again, Stefon Diggs was not highly targeted last year, but again, that was in a Minnesota offense that were really trying to shake things up with the run last year. Last year, Stefon only gave you 94 targets, catching 63 of those, which is a 67% catch percentage rating. He also found the end zone 6 times, finishing the year with 1,130 yards in 15 games. Stefon Diggs is a gamer. I think he will have a huge chip on his shoulder, and it should be fun to watch out there in Buffalo. Now, some guys that didn't really follow my top 12 list that I think probably could have, and they'll probably follow in some of your top list, is Cooper Kupp and Adam Thielen. Cooper Kupp is seeing 134 targets last year, catching 94 of those. Sort of slowed down towards the end of the year with the emergence of Higbee. And again, he only started in 14 games last year. I think he was playing with some injuries. But that's never to say he had a 70% catch rating, and he also gave you over 1,000 yards on the season with 10 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp is definitely a great player. So he's on my fringe. Again, I'm a little concerned with the emergence of Higbee. We'll see how things work out there. But that's my top rankings. Hopefully that helped, and I'll see you on the next show.